She never raised her voice. No arrogance. No big show. Just this calm little question. Mind if I take a turn at the rifle range? The colonel laughed. Thought it was a joke. Even the SEALs standing nearby. They didn't take her seriously either. She just looked too small, too quiet. But then, she stepped forward. No hesitation. No wasted movement. She picked up the rifle, adjusted the scope, checked the wind, and fired. One shot, then another. Then 5 more in quick succession, each one faster, sharper, more precise than anyone expected. When the screen lit up, everyone leaned in. Perfect grouping. Flawless time. The SEAL sniper record shattered. And the colonel? He didn't laugh again. He just stood there, frozen, watching the quiet woman reload, like nothing had happened. Where are you watching from today? And if stories like this inspire you, stick around. Because sometimes, one quiet moment changes everything. The Nevada desert doesn't forgive. Its sun presses down in waves of heat across the Hawthorne Advanced Tactical Training Facility, shimmering over concrete and steel. Colonel Aldrich, Blackwood moves with measured authority at the head of a small cluster of high-ranking military visitors, his uniform crisp, every step deliberate. The men around him keep pace, but one figure at the far edge of the group doesn't quite match the formation. A young woman, hardly more than a girl to most eyes, lingers a few paces behind. Vesper Calloway, 17, quiet, draped in a regulation. Jacket 2 sizes too large, she moves without drawing attention, her gaze steady, watching everything yet betraying nothing. Blackwood's voice rolls across the compound like gravel over metal, his commentary sharp and confident as he gestures toward live training drills. Ahead, soldiers move through simulated city blocks, their footfalls echoing as they clear one building after another. As you can see, gentlemen, Blackwood says, his tone carrying easily in the dry air. We leave no variable untested. These men and women train for every condition, every theater, every unknown. What you see here is the standard we hold. Major Thorne, walking midway in the pack, casts the occasional glance over his shoulder toward Vesper. He hadn't wanted her here. A classified facility wasn't the place for anyone outside the chain of command, especially not a teenager. But circumstances had forced his hand when her guardian had been unexpectedly hospitalized. She can wait in the visitor center, someone had said earlier. But Vesper didn't. She simply moved along with the group, soundless as dust on the wind. And strangely, no one had stopped her. Now, while the others focus on Blackwood's briefing, she absorbs everything. Training ranges, security measures, even the smallest details in the cadence of operations. Blackwood brings the group to a halt near a long stretch of precision firing stations, sunlight glinting off the polished barrels. He allows a small smile. And here, gentlemen, he says, turning with pride, is where skill and discipline meet at their highest measure. Our long-distance rifle range. SEAL Team 8 is in the middle of calibrating our newest targeting array, Colonel Blackwood says, his voice carrying over the quiet hum of equipment. Before the visitors, the rifle range unfolds like an endless ribbon of baked earth and steel markers. Targets are spaced at meticulously measured intervals. Some so far they blur in the wavering heat. Each impact will be recorded instantly. By electronic systems housed in steel-clad stations along the line, several shooters lie prone at their positions, still as stone, rifles braced, breath held. Every squeeze of the trigger is deliberate, every follow-through precise. Blackwood gestures toward a broad-shouldered officer a few lanes down. Lieutenant Commander Reeve currently holds our standing record, he says, pride threading through his tone. Consistent groupings at 1,200 yards. The Pentagon keeps a close eye on his methodology. A low ripple of impressed murmurs runs through the group. A silver-haired general, chest heavy with rows of ribbons and medals, leans closer to inspect one of the precision rifles. Technical questions start to fly. Muzzle velocities, wind factors, barrel harmonics. Blackwood answers each without hesitation. Off to the side, unnoticed, Vesper Calloway's attention isn't on the weapons. Her gaze rests on the tall grass beyond the berm, noting the faint, uneven sway. It's wind, but not uniform, a shifting current invisible to everyone else. Our snipers log a minimum of 3,000 hours on range, time before we even think about deploying them, Blackwood continues. Even then, fewer than 20% pass advanced certification. What you're seeing here, gentlemen, is the sharpest edge of human performance. As the last shot cracks and brass casings glint in the dirt, the demonstration winds down. The delegation begins to move toward the next training sector. when a voice, soft but steady, cuts through the desert stillness. "Excuse me, Colonel. May I try?" The words seem to hang in the air, weightless yet impossible to ignore. Heads turn. At the far edge of the group, Vesper stands motionless, her eyes fixed on Blackwood. For a heartbeat, silence. Then Blackwood's laugh rolls out, rich and amused. "Young lady, these rifles are precision instruments, $30,000 each. They're not for casual use." A few SEALs exchange knowing looks. One pretends to heft a rifle nearly his size, his exaggerated pose drawing chuckles. Major Thorne moves forward quickly, his expression tightening. He knows exactly where this is heading, and wishes he didn't. "Vesper, that's out of line," Major Thorne says firmly, his voice pitched low but edged with embarrassment. "Apologize to the Colonel." But she doesn't. No shifting of her weight, no downcast eyes. She simply stands there, still as the hot air around them. Her frame may be slight, but there's something anchored in her stance, something that makes her refusal feel deliberate. "I understand your concern, sir," she replies, her tone even, almost calm. "If you'll allow me just 3 rounds, I can assure you there will be no damage to your equipment." Colonel Blackwood's mouth curves into a slow grin. There's no irritation in it, only the glint of amusement that comes from seeing an opportunity for sport. "All right, little lady, let's show these gentlemen some civilian marksmanship." He turns to Lieutenant Commander Reeve with a wave. "Reeve, bring her something she can actually lift. Let's not break the poor girl's shoulder." Reeve approaches with an exaggerated politeness, carrying a rifle like a man delivering a complicated gift to someone who won't understand it. His voice is pitched loud, slow, instructional, as if speaking to a child. "This," he says, "is the trigger. You hold it like this, and be careful, there's a bit of recoil." Phones come out of pockets. Several visitors angle for a better view, ready to capture what they expect will be a moment of harmless amusement. SEAL operators nearby form a loose half-circle, trading small smirks. Vesper doesn't answer. She simply takes the rifle, hands steady. The moment it's in her grasp, her fingers slide across the metal with quiet familiarity, testing its balance, checking the fit. She adjusts the stock against her shoulder in a movement so natural it doesn't belong to a beginner. More the reflex of someone who's done this countless times before. "This is the Remington MSR, with a modified stock," she says softly, eyes on the weapon. Then without looking up, "May I request the 168-grain Sierra Match King rounds? The ballistic coefficient is better for this range." The air shifts. Blackwood's grin doesn't disappear, but it pauses. Reeve glances at him, brow furrowed. A murmur passes through the group. The easy, joking mood that hovered over the range moments ago begins to thin. "How exactly?" asks a weapons specialist standing nearby, a man with weathered hands and streaks of silver in his hair. "Do you know about ballistic coefficients?" Vesper doesn't hesitate. 0.462 at subsonic speeds, improving to 0.535 once past the transonic range, she answers matter-of-factly. Her finger moves to a barely noticeable tweak on the rifle's optic. "The adjustment here compensates for heat distortion at long distance," she adds quietly. And suddenly, no one's laughing. "This one's fitted with the enhanced elevation turret," Vesper says softly, her fingers brushing the adjustment ring with a practiced ease. Swedish design. The weapons specialist freezes for a moment. His eyes narrow slightly. That detail isn't in any public spec sheet. Major Thorne clears his throat, voice stiff. "She spent some years overseas," he offers, the words sounding like a patch meant to cover a far deeper story. The explanation drifts into silence, unconvincing. Colonel Blackwood studies her more closely now. Not her face and her hands. The faint calluses along her fingers. The way she cradles the rifle naturally, not like a tourist posing for a photo, but like someone who has lived with it. "Set her a target at 300 yards, Blackwood calls to the range crew. "If I may, Colonel," Vesper says politely, her tone still calm. "I'd prefer the maximum range available." Blackwood chuckles, but there's less certainty behind it this time. "You'd have better luck hitting the moon, sweetheart." "Fine, 200. Let's not keep the group waiting." While the target systems reset, Vesper makes small, precise adjustments. Almost no one notices. Almost. From her jacket pocket, she slips out a compact instrument reading humidity. Then she checks the barometric pressure, glances at the flags along the firing lane, gauging the light wind shift. The SEALs who had been smirking earlier are silent now. Amusement has bled away, replaced by the quiet watchfulness of professionals, recognizing something they can't quite place. Vesper settles into position, Her form isn't textbook, it's flawless. There's no wasted movement, no self-conscious hesitation. Her breathing slows until it's barely visible, her body aligning with the rifle in a posture that feels inevitable. Before she fires, she whispers something under her breath. The words foreign, the meaning unclear. The shot cracks. For a moment, there's nothing but the sharp echo across the desert. Everyone waits for the miss. The spotter at the optics stiffens, his voice low, incredulous. Dead center, bullseye. Before the reaction can spread, another shot. Then another. Then 3 more in rapid succession. Each faster than a trained observer would think possible. On the electronic board, the results blink to life. 6 shots. All in a grouping no wider than a dime. And then the numbers update. Her time is posted. She's beaten Reeves' long-standing record by 12.8 seconds. Silence. Vesper stands, calm as ever, and hands the rifle back to Lieutenant Commander Reeve, who takes it without a word. Blackwood's voice comes at last, stripped of humor. Who trained you? Major Thorne steps forward, resignation in his eyes. He takes out his phone, opens a secure file, and turns it for Blackwood to see. The Colonel's expression shifts as he reads. Color drains from his face. You're Calloway's daughter. From Operation Nightshade. That's the real reason we're here, Colonel, Major Thorne says at last. Vesper didn't just happen to tag along. She was sent to assess your program. Blackwood's brows rise. Assess? She's 17. By age, yes, Thorne replies evenly. But she's been training under her father's methods since she could stand. The Pentagon believes she may be the only person alive who fully understands his integrated targeting system. Vesper turns from the memorial wall, her expression calm but direct. I'll need complete access to the past 5 years of range data, and I'd like to work hands-on with your top shooters. What happens next is a shift no one could have imagined hours earlier. Colonel Blackwood himself escorts Vesper through the facility, his tone measured with a new respect. The officials who had accompanied them follow closely now, their attention locked on the quiet, young woman who had upended not just a record, but their entire perception. Your father helped design this section, Blackwood says as they enter a specialized wing. He argued for more realistic urban simulations. Cost a fortune, but he was right. Vesper studies the Mock City block with a careful, calculating eye. He built a smaller version in our backyard when I was 8, she says. Made me run it blindfolded until I could map it by sound alone. The officials exchange glances, the picture of her upbringing becoming sharper and far from ordinary. Commander Calloway never believed standard training went far enough, Thorne explains to the group. He built a system that combined physical marksmanship with neurological conditioning. Neurological conditioning? One of the visiting officials asks. Vesper answers before Thorne can. The human brain processes visual input at fixed speeds. My father developed ways to accelerate those neural pathways. Most shooters see, think, then act. He taught me to make all 3 happen as a single reflex. The weapons specialist who had doubted her earlier steps forward. That's what we saw out there? Your transition time between targets was physiologically off the charts. Not impossible, Vesper replies quietly. Just not recorded here until now. They arrive at a secured conference room where several senior officers are waiting. The air feels heavier, charged with expectation. A 4-star general rises as they enter. Miss Calloway, he says, extending his hand. Your father saved my life in Kandahar. It's an honor to finally meet you. Vesper shakes his hand with a formality that feels far older than her years. General Ryerson. My father spoke of you often. Ryerson gestures for everyone to sit. I hear there was quite a demonstration on the range today. Blackwood clears his throat. Sir, she broke Reeves' record by nearly 13 seconds. Perfect grouping. Maximum range. First attempt at you with an unfamiliar weapon. Ryerson only nods, unsurprised. Evan always said she was his masterpiece. We just weren't sure if the stories were real. What stories? One of the civilian officials asks. Ryerson exchanges a glance with Thorne, who gives a slight nod. Commander Calloway was working on a program called Nightshade. Ryerson explains. Its purpose was to develop operators with speed and precision far beyond the current standard. The early results were promising, but the program was too demanding for conventional use. Too demanding? Blackwood asks. The training had to start in early childhood, Thorne answers. When the ethics board found out, the official program was shut down. But he continued privately. With his daughter, one of the officials says slowly, his eyes moving to Vesper. With my consent, Vesper says firmly. Every single step of the way. Ryerson leans forward. After your father's death, we lost his complete methodology. The files he left were deliberately incomplete. We think he was protecting you. He was, Vesper replies without hesitation. Some elements can't be written down. They have to be demonstrated, lived. That's why you're here, Ryerson says. To decide if this facility is worthy of inheriting the rest of his legacy. Vesper's voice is steady. He believed his system could save lives by producing operators so precise. Collateral damage could be reduced to almost nothing. But he also feared what could happen if it was misused or taught improperly. The weight of her words settles over the room. Colonel Blackwood breaks the silence. What would you need from us? Total autonomy, Vesper says without pause. I select the candidates. I control the training environment. No interference, no matter how unconventional my methods may seem. Ryerson sits back slowly. Those, he says, were your father's exact terms. We agreed then. And we still agree now. The meeting ends without further debate. Vesper is quietly escorted to the quarters set aside for her. The room is simple, military efficiency in every detail, yet not without care. On the small bedside table sits a single framed photo. Her father, in desert camouflage, rifle in hand, smiling faintly in a way few men had ever seen. We found that in the archives, Major Thorne says as he sets it down. Thought you might want it here. When Thorne leaves, the door closes on the sound of silence. Vesper sits on the edge of the bed. The calm, controlled composure she's maintained all day softens. Her fingers brush across the frame, tracing her father's weathered face. I made it, Dad, she whispers. Just like you said I would. Ooh. Before dawn, the range is empty, except for her. The air is sharp and cool in the gray light. Targets are faint shapes in the distance, barely distinguishable in the half-dark. In her hands, her father's personal rifle. It hasn't been taken from secure storage in 6 years. Colonel Blackwood approaches without announcement, surprised to see her already working. You're up early, he remarks. My father believed the changing light at dawn was the hardest condition for a marksman, Vesper replies, eyes still fixed on the target field. He made me fire 200 rounds every morning before breakfast. Blackwood stays silent as she settles into position. Shot after shot cracks out, each one delivered with machine-like precision. Your father was a hard man, Blackwood observes quietly. He was preparing me, she corrects. He knew his enemies wouldn't stop with him. He knew, eventually, they'd come for me. The colonel's expression hardens. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard never forgave him for Tehran. We've seen chatter over the years. They're still looking for his family. I know, Vesper says evenly. There have been 3 attempts to locate me in the last 6 years. 2 of those teams didn't return home. Blackwood studies her, finally understanding that her training wasn't just academic. You weren't just taught to shoot, he says. No, she replies, reloading with smooth precision. My father taught me everything he knew. How to see, how to move, how to survive. By mid-morning, a small group of hand-picked operators gathers at the range. These are our best, Blackwood says. Top 5% in their fields. Among them stands Lieutenant Commander Reeve, no longer skeptical, but visibly curious. Vesper scans the group, her assessment sharp and quick. I'll start one-on-one. Lieutenant Commander Reeve first. The rest are dismissed for now. The others move off, leaving Reeve standing in front of the teenager, who had broken his record the day before. Your form, Vesper says, surprising him, is technically perfect, but you're working against your own body's natural rhythm. Reeve frowns. Come again? You've been taught to fire between heartbeats, correct? Standard sniper doctrine. But your natural heart rate doesn't match the timing that doctrine assumes. You're adjusting every time you fire, and that's costing you milliseconds. He looks skeptical. And how exactly would you know my heart rate? I can see your carotid pulse, she says plainly. Your body wants a rhythm of about 1.22 seconds between beats. You're forcing it to 1.5. That tiny adjustment is slowing you down. She raises her father's rifle, setting her stance. Watch the demonstration. Then we'll adapt the technique to your physiology. What follows isn't just instructions, it's transformation. In 15 years of special operations, Reeve has trained with some of the best marksmen in the world, but nothing compares to what Vesper does on that range. She doesn't simply adjust his stance or tweak his aim. She dismantles his entire understanding of how his body interacts with the rifle, and then rebuilds it. By late afternoon, his shot grouping is 30% tighter. His transition time between targets, dramatically faster. Reviewing the data, Reeve shakes his head in disbelief. This is unreal. Why isn't this standard training? Vesper's reply is calm, matter-of-fact. Because most instructors are teaching a script. They pass along techniques without understanding why they work. My father believed marksmanship was a living system. Mind, body, and weapon functioning as one. Word spreads fast. By week's end, seasoned instructors are quietly showing up to her sessions, notebooks in hand. Long-standing training protocols, untouched for decades, are suddenly under review. In the command center, General Ryerson stands with Colonel Blackwood over a table of performance charts. These numbers are extraordinary, Ryerson says, scanning the sheets. Reeve's scores alone have jumped 15 percentile points in 5 days. It's not just the improvement, sir, Blackwood adds. It's the consistency. No performance dips under fatigue. No degradation under stress. She's rewiring how they operate. Ryerson exhales slowly. Evan Calloway always said his system could change the future of special operations. We thought it was just optimism. Blackwood hesitates. Sir, there's something else. Security intercepted chatter suggesting Iranian assets may have identified this installation as a possible location for her. Ryerson's face hardens. Tighten security protocols, full lockdown procedures, triple verify all entries and exits. Already in place, Blackwood says. But there's a complication. Miss Calloway refuses to pause her evaluation. She says her father prepared her for exactly this. She's 17, Colonel, Ryerson says firmly. No matter her skill, we have a responsibility to keep her safe. With respect, General, Blackwood replies carefully. I'm not sure she needs us to protect her. You haven't seen everything she can do. The next morning, Vesper works with a new group, a select unit of female operators trained in covert insertion. At first, the women meet her with the same guarded skepticism the men had, but that shifts fast as Vesper begins, demonstrating methods tailored for their physiology. The standard grip works against your natural wrist alignment, she says to a sergeant with smaller hands. My father designed this alternate position specifically for operators, built like you. The sergeant tries the adjusted stance. 3 clean shots, 3 perfect hits. She lowers the weapon, stunned. Why wasn't this ever part of our training? Because the manuals were written by men, Vesper replies without judgment, and they wrote them for bodies like their own. During a short break, one of the female operators steps away from the group and approaches Vesper. They say you're Commander Calloway's daughter. Is that true? Vesper inclines her head in a quiet nod. My brother served under him in Syria, the woman continues. He told me your father was the only officer who ever treated female operators as equals, not as exceptions. Vesper's eyes soften just slightly. He believed capability had no gender. That's why he trained me without limits. Every skill, every lesson. The session wraps, but before the operators can disperse, Major Thorne appears at the far edge of the range. His expression is tight, his hand motioning Vesper over. We've intercepted specific chatter, he says in a low voice. A hostile team crossed the border 12 hours ago. Intelligence indicates they're carrying long-range anti-personnel systems. Vesper absorbs this without any visible reaction. Have you rotated the security per my recommendations? Yes, Thorne replies. But Colonel Blackwood wants you moved to a secure location until we neutralize the threat. That won't be necessary, Vesper says evenly. My father taught me, the best defense is to become the hunter before the hunter finds you. Thorne's concern deepens. Vesper, these are seasoned operatives with years of field time. So am I, she replies simply. Keep the training schedule exactly as planned. I'll make my own preparation. That evening, as the sun sinks and shadows take the range, Vesper is in her quarters. A case lies open on the bed. Inside, compact, specialized tools, not standard military issue. Equipment designed for stealth operations deep inside hostile ground. Gear Major Thorne had reluctantly authorized. A knock sounds softly at her door. Lieutenant Commander Reeve stands there, expression serious. I heard about the threat, he says without small talk. My team's ready. We'll take protective detail. I appreciate it, Vesper replies, methodically checking her gear. But this is something I need to handle myself. Reeve studies her movements, precise, deliberate, and a realization dawns. They're not after you just because of your father, are they? They want what you know. The Nightshade protocols. Vesper looks up, meeting his gaze with quiet certainty. My father died protecting his team and his country. I won't dishonor that by hiding while others take risks in my place. At least let us provide backup, Reeve urges. You don't have to walk into this alone. A faint smile curves her lips, the first sign of anything close to warmth. "My father's last lesson," she says softly, "was that sometimes, Lieutenant Commander, the quietest hunter is the deadliest one in the field." For 20 long minutes, Vesper lies absolutely still. Not a muscle twitches. On the monitors, the three intruders continue their approach, unaware that every step, every pause is being cataloged in her mind. Then, just as one of the security officers leans in to track her heat signature, she vanishes. "Lost her signal," the operator says, tension creeping into his voice. "No," Major Thorne replies calmly. "She's not gone. She's masking herself. When she wants to be seen again, she will be." The command center falls quiet. All eyes lock on the remaining dots moving across the sand. The lead intruder edges toward what he believes is a gap in the facility's perimeter, the perfect blind spot. What he doesn't realize is that the blind spot exists by design. It's a funnel meant to guide intruders into a preset kill zone. On the monitor, his forward motion halts. For a heartbeat, he seems frozen. Then, without a sound, he crumples. No muzzle flash. No report on the audio feed. Just down. "What in the world just happened?" Colonel Blackwood demands. Before anyone can answer, the second operative breaks formation, sprinting toward the fallen man. He doesn't make it halfway. His hands shoot to his throat and he drops, motionless. "Tranquilizer rounds," Thorne says at last. "Custom loads, subsonic. Powder signature is almost non-existent. Her father designed them for stealth engagements." The last intruder realizes the fight has gone sideways. He falls back to a rock formation, weapon raised, trying to control his breathing. His eyes sweep the desert in every direction, except up. Above him, clinging silently to the rock face, Vesper waits. Her descent is smooth, calculated. The man barely registers movement before a needle slips into the base of his neck. His body goes slack before it hits the dirt. "3 targets neutralized," the security officer reports, stunned. Total time, 4 minutes, 28 seconds. General Ryerson's expression is hard, but there's pride in his voice. Her father would have approved. "Secure the operatives. I want them alive for interrogation." As the quick reaction team moves to collect the unconscious men, Vesper's voice cuts in over comms, calm and measured. "Advise caution with the second target. He's carrying a false molar with cyanide. Secure it before he wakes." Blackwood turns sharply. "How could she possibly—" "Dental irregularity," Vesper answers evenly, visible when he spoke on comms. "Standard issue for their unit." She pauses, returning to base. "Prep interrogation rooms." Ooh. An hour later, Vesper sits in the debriefing room, her gear already cleaned and stowed. No jitter, no adrenaline dump. She sips water as Blackwood and Ryerson enter. "The intruders are secure," Ryerson informs her. Preliminary IDs confirm their ghost. Force, specialized in assassination and asset retrieval. They were equipped with interrogation tools. "They weren't here to kill me," Vesper says quietly. "They wanted the complete Nightshade protocols." Blackwood leans forward. "Which brings us to the bigger problem. 3 enemy operatives slipping onto U.S. soil changes everything. By protocol, Homeland Security and the FBI should be involved." "They won't be," General Ryerson says, his tone leaving no room for debate. "As far as the record is concerned, this incident never occurred. They'll be transferred to a secure black site, interrogated under standard procedure, and nothing will exist on paper." Vesper meets his gaze without flinching. "My father planned for this exact scenario. Don't waste time asking why they came, and we already know. Interrogate them for their chain of command. That's the only intel that matters." Colonel Blackwood leans forward. "And when someone asks how 3 professional operatives were stopped by a civilian teenager, the official report," Ryerson replies, "will state they were picked up by base security during a routine perimeter sweep. Ms. Calloway's presence here stays classified at the highest level. The debrief ends with new security measures in place, and a green light to fast-track Vesper's training program. As she turns to leave, Blackwood finally asks the question that's been bothering him. "How did you even know they'd come here? Your location was supposed to be locked down." Vesper doesn't hesitate. "Because I wanted them to." Both men stare. "For the last 3 months, I've left deliberate trails for their intel teams, enough to make them curious. They needed to come here on my terms, where I could control the engagement." Ryerson's expression tightens. "You exposed yourself on purpose?" "It was necessary," she says plainly. "This team was part of a wider net. By letting them find me under controlled circumstances, I removed the immediate threat, and fed their superiors the kind of misinformation my father would have approved of. Only then does it hit them. This wasn't self-defense. It was counterintelligence, and it was orchestrated by a 17-year-old. Ryerson nods slowly. Your father didn't just train you to shoot. He trained me to win before the fight even starts, she replies. The best victories are the ones the enemy never realizes they've lost. 6 months later, Hawthorne doesn't look the same. What started as an evaluation has evolved into a dedicated training wing. The observation deck above the tactical course hums quietly as Blackwood briefs. A row of government officials in suits. She's not just breaking records anymore, he says, watching the range below. She's rewriting the limits of what we thought possible. On the training floor, Vesper moves through drills in tactical gear, an instructor patch on her shoulder. The operators follow her lead without hesitation. The Callaway method integrates controlled breathing, cognitive timing, and weapon alignment as a single process, Blackwood explains. We assumed the system was lost with the commander. We were wrong. An official scrolls through a tablet. Your reports show accuracy improvements across the board. 38% increase in first-round hit probability? And that's just the beginning, Blackwood replies. Below, Vesper adjusts a female recruit's stance with quiet precision. The woman recenters, fires, and nails a perfect shot. The smile on her face says it all. One of the officials glances back. We're forming a new special operations unit. Precision-focused missions. We want her to train them. Blackwood doesn't look away from the floor. She already is. To the recruits, Vesper isn't a teenager. She's the standard they measure themselves against. Lieutenant Commander Reeve enters the observation deck at Blackwood's request. Commander, the Joint Chiefs have authorized Task Force Nightshade. You'll lead field operations. Callaway will serve as training director and mission consultant. Reeve raises an eyebrow. She specifically asked for me? She said your adaptation to the protocols exceeded every projection. Blackwood confirms. Below, Vesper glances up toward the glass, almost as if she knows the decision has been made. A subtle nod acknowledges the moment. Blackwood's tone turns serious. The operatives we captured weren't alone. Other groups, foreign and domestic, are looking for her. Some want the protocols. Others want to make sure they never surface. Reeve answers without hesitation. We'll keep her safe. That's the thing, Blackwood says, eyes still on the range. I'm not worried about her safety. I'm worried about the people foolish enough to come for her. Later, between drills, Vesper pulls a challenge coin from her pocket, her father's coin. She brushes her thumb across the worn metal, then glances toward the observation deck before refocusing on her recruits. Sometimes Blackwood thinks, the quietest person in the room is the one who should terrify you the most. As the officials depart, Vesper takes the firing line. She demonstrates a perfect shot, then steps back, letting her students try. Breathe with your target, she instructs. Feel its movement. Become part of its world before you change it. Her voice carries the same quiet weight her father's once did. In the months that follow, Task Force Nightshade becomes operational. Their missions are sealed at the highest clearance. But whispers move through intelligence channels. Missions executed. So cleanly that targets don't know they've been compromised until long after. Extractions leave no trace. Hostile operations vanish without escalation. It's a different kind of warfare, one measured not in body counts, but in the absence of collateral damage. And at the center stands Vesper Callaway, calm, steady, and still carrying her father's legacy forward. 1 year after she first walked into Hawthorne, she's back where it began at dawn. On the range, rifle in hand, Blackwood approaches. Your recruits arrived today. 20 operators from every branch, all handpicked from your criteria. They'll have to unlearn most of what they know, she says, chambering around. They're the best we've got. They will be, she answers softly. Once they understand what my father understood, that precision is a responsibility. She fires. Even at extreme distance, the hit is perfect. Your father would be proud, Blackwood says quietly. Vesper allows the faintest smile. He always said his success wasn't measured by his own accomplishments, but by what others could do after him. I think he'd be proud of this task force. As the sun rises, casting long shadows across the range, Vesper shoulders her rifle and heads toward the main building. Inside, the next generation waits. She walks with the quiet certainty of someone who knows her role, not just to teach them how to shoot, but when not to. Because true precision isn't about force, it's about control.